Stop the music. Jimin's voice disappeared beneath the roar of thousands of fans, but backstage, the words landed like a gunshot. Jungkook was still standing beneath the spotlight. The scheduled final song had ended minutes earlier. Confetti floated through the air like silver snow, cameras moved across the stage, and the audience continued chanting his name. Then Jungkook lifted one hand. The band stopped. The enormous screen behind him went completely black. A nervous murmur passed through the stadium. Jimin stood at the side of the stage, frozen. "That song isn't on the set list," one of the staff members whispered. Jungkook looked toward the audience. Then, for the briefest moment, his eyes found Jimin. "I wrote something," he said into the microphone. "I was never supposed to sing it." Jimin's stomach dropped. The first piano notes filled the stadium. Soft. Almost painfully familiar. Jimin knew that melody. He had heard Jungkook humming it late at night months ago. Back then, Jungkook had stopped whenever Jimin entered the room. Now the melody returned, louder than ever. Jungkook began to sing. The lyrics were about a person who smiled whenever he was hurting, who touched his necklace whenever he became nervous, who always looked at the moon when he missed someone. Jimin's fingers slowly rose to his own necklace. His breath caught. Nobody else would understand. But he did. Every detail belonged to him. Every line. Every memory. Every secret. His eyes filled with tears. Jungkook continued singing, his voice becoming softer with each verse. There was a line about two people standing beneath a hotel balcony during a storm. Jimin remembered that night. There was another line about a cup of coffee left untouched because one person was too afraid to say goodbye. He remembered that too. Then came the lyric that broke him completely. "I loved you quietly because losing your friendship terrified me more than losing my heart." Jimin covered his mouth. Tears slipped down his face. The crowd assumed it was simply an emotional performance. They didn't know that the singer and the man crying backstage had spent months avoiding the truth. They didn't know about the night everything changed. 6 months earlier, Jimin had discovered a folded sheet of paper inside Jungkook's studio notebook. But one sentence caught his attention. "If I tell him, I may lose him forever." Jimin had closed the notebook immediately. He never asked. Jungkook never explained. Instead, distance slowly grew between them. The song continued. Then Jungkook sang about a promise made years ago between two exhausted trainees. "If the world ever becomes too loud, look beside you. I'll still be there." Jimin remembered that promise. His tears fell faster. When the final note disappeared, the stadium erupted. Jungkook lowered the microphone. He didn't smile. He simply looked at Jimin. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Jimin walked backstage. His hands were shaking. "Why?" Jungkook looked down. "Because I was tired of lying. To me. To myself." Jimin's expression tightened. "You could have told me. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Jungkook finally raised his eyes. "Of discovering that what I felt would destroy everything we built." Jimin couldn't answer. Before he could say another word, a stage manager rushed toward them. "Jungkook, we need you for the press conference." Jungkook nodded. But as he walked away, something slipped from his jacket. A small photograph fell onto the floor. Jimin picked it up. It was old. Much older than the song. It showed 3 people standing beneath a rainy Seoul streetlight. Jimin. Jungkook. And someone Jimin had not seen in years. His former close friend, Mina. On the back of the photograph was one sentence. He doesn't remember what happened that night. Jimin stared at the words. Suddenly, the song meant something completely different. This wasn't only a confession. It was a warning. And somewhere inside the stadium, someone had been waiting for Jimin to discover it. Episode 2, The Memory Between Them. Jimin waited until after midnight before confronting Jungkook. The practice building was almost empty. Only the hum of the air conditioner and distant traffic disturbed the silence. Jungkook sat alone in the studio, his guitar resting across his knees. You knew about the photograph. He stopped playing. Jimin placed it on the table. Jungkook stared at it for several seconds. It fell from your jacket. Jungkook's face changed. Not fear. Recognition. You shouldn't have seen it. Then tell me why. Jungkook stood and walked toward the window. Outside, rain covered Seoul in shimmering reflections. Mina contacted me 3 months ago. Jimin's expression hardened. She contacted you. She said she wanted to apologize. For what? Jungkook remained silent. That silence was enough to make Jimin angry. You wrote an entire song about me, hid a photograph involving her, and now you're telling me nothing. I was trying to protect you. From what? From the truth. Jimin laughed bitterly. That's always what people say when they're hiding something. Jungkook's jaw tightened. I wasn't the one who betrayed you. The room went silent. Jimin's anger faded. What does that mean? Jungkook opened an old drawer. Inside was a phone that looked years out of date. He handed it to Jimin. There are recordings. Jimin hesitated before pressing play. A younger version of his own voice filled the room. He immediately recognized it. It was from years ago. He heard himself laughing. Then Jungkook's younger voice. Then Mina. The recording ended with shouting. Jimin's face went pale. I don't remember this. I know. What happened? You left that night believing Mina had betrayed you. Jungkook swallowed. But she wasn't alone. Jimin looked at him. Who was with her? Jungkook didn't answer. Instead, he opened another file. A photograph appeared. It showed Jimin asleep in the back seat of a car. Beside him sat Jungkook. Mina was driving. The timestamp was from the same night. Jimin's breathing became shallow. Why was I asleep? You had taken medication after becoming sick. And you? I stayed with you. Jimin stared at the photograph. A memory flickered. Rain. Headlights. A voice saying, "Don't be afraid." Then nothing. The memory disappeared. Jungkook quietly said, after that night, Mina asked me to keep everything secret. Why? Because she believed telling you the truth would destroy you. Jimin looked at him. And you agreed. I was 21. The vulnerability in Jungkook's voice silenced him. I thought protecting you meant carrying the secret alone. Jimin looked down. For years, he had believed Jungkook had simply watched him suffer. Now he realized Jungkook had been suffering too. But another question remained. What was the secret? Jungkook looked toward the photograph. That part isn't mine to tell. Jimin felt frustrated. Then his phone vibrated. An unknown number had sent a message. You finally know about the photograph. Now ask Jungkook why he never told you what happened after midnight. Jimin looked up. Jungkook had seen the message. The color drained from his face. Neither spoke. For the first time, Jimin understood that the story he remembered was not the story that had actually happened. Mina agreed to meet them in an old cafe the following evening. The place smelled of roasted coffee and wet pavement. Rain tapped against the windows as she sat across from them, nervously twisting a paper napkin between her fingers. I should have told you years ago, she said. Jimin said nothing. Jungkook watched her carefully. Mina finally looked at Jimin. That night, you didn't betray anyone. Jimin's eyes narrowed. What? You were the one who had been betrayed. She explained everything. Years earlier, someone had secretly recorded a private conversation involving Jimin and threatened to leak it unless he withdrew from an important opportunity. Mina had discovered the threat. She tried to stop it. But the person behind it manipulated the situation, making Jimin believe Mina had betrayed him. Jungkook discovered the truth that same night. He confronted the person responsible. But instead of exposing everything publicly, he made a sacrifice. He accepted the blame. He allowed Jimin to believe he had chosen silence because he didn't care. I thought if Jimin hated me, Jungkook said quietly, he would stay away from the people threatening him. Jimin stared at him. You let me hate you. I thought it would keep you safe. You should have trusted me. I know. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. Then why write that song now? Jungkook looked at him. Because I realized protecting someone by lying to them can become another kind of betrayal. Mina lowered her head. I also lied. Jimin looked at her. I was afraid. The three sat silently while rain continued against the glass. Then Mina placed an envelope on the table. There's one more thing. Jimin opened it. Inside was a handwritten lyric sheet. The handwriting was Jungkook's. But the date was from years ago. Jimin read the first line. If someday you hear this song, it means I finally found the courage to tell you. His hands trembled. You wrote this back then? Jungkook nodded. I never finished it. Why? Because I thought loving you in silence was safer. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. The forbidden love had never been about stealing anyone away. It had been about fear. Fear of destroying a friendship. Fear of public judgment. Fear that one confession could erase an entire lifetime of memories. Jimin slowly folded the paper. I was angry because I thought you had chosen to hide me. Jungkook whispered, I was hiding myself. That sentence broke the last wall between them. Jimin reached across the table. His hand stopped inches from Jungkook's. Neither dared move. Then Jimin finally whispered, you don't have to disappear anymore. Jungkook looked at him. For the first time, he smiled without pretending. But outside the cafe, a camera flashed through the rain. Someone had been watching them. The last verse. The photograph appeared online the following morning. It showed Jimin and Jungkook sitting across from each other inside the cafe. Within hours, rumors spread. People invented stories. Fans argued. Headlines appeared. The company demanded explanations. Jungkook stood in a silent conference room, staring at the floor. I'll take responsibility, he said. Jimin immediately looked at him. No. You shouldn't have to deal with this. We deal with it together. The word silenced everyone. For years, both had believed silence was protection. Now they understood that silence had only allowed fear to control them. That evening, Jungkook returned to the same stage where he had sung the forbidden song. The lights dimmed. The audience became quiet. Jimin stood backstage. This time, he didn't hide his tears. Jungkook picked up the microphone. I wrote the first version of this song years ago, he said. I thought love was something dangerous that had to be hidden. I thought protecting someone meant making decisions for them. He paused. I was wrong. The piano began. He sang the original melody again. But this time, there was a final verse. A verse nobody had heard. If I lose the world but keep the truth, I'll still remember what I chose. And if tomorrow changes everything, I'll never call our memories a mistake. Jimin closed his eyes. Tears slipped down his cheeks. The final note faded. The stadium remained silent for one breathtaking second. Then the applause began. Jimin walked onto the stage. He didn't say anything. He simply stood beside Jungkook. Jungkook looked at him. "Are you sure?" Jimin smiled through his tears. For the first time, yes. Nothing needed to be explained. Not to the cameras. Not to the audience. Not even to themselves. They knew their future would not suddenly become easy. There would still be rumors. There would still be fear. There would still be days when doubt returned. But they had finally stopped allowing fear to make their choices. Later that night, the two sat alone in the empty stadium. The same place where everything had begun. Jimin held the old photograph. "You know," he whispered, "I used to hate this picture." "Why?" "Because I thought it represented everything I had lost." Jungkook looked at him. "And now?" Jimin smiled. "Now I think it proves we survived." Jungkook looked toward the empty stage. The microphone still stood beneath the fading lights. "What happens to the song?" Jimin folded the photograph carefully. "Keep it." "Why?"